When it comes to values, one of my favorite activities is to use values cards like this pack here. The way they work is a little bit like this. I'll show you. These ones are divided into two sets. We have conversation cards like these ones here, and then we have actual values cards like these here. And each of the cards are colorful, creative, and are really valuable and interesting ways of engaging people in conversations about their values. I use them a lot with young people, but also adults as well. The actual activity involves sorting the values cards to help narrow into values priorities and what's most important to the person. I ask the person to sort them into 3 piles, and they are not very important, quite important, and very important. And I also make the caveat that I'm asking the person to sort them in terms of right now. So not values in the future or the past, but how important are these to you right now? So I ask the person to go through and sort, not thinking about it too much, but divide them into the 3 piles. I'm going to do that now for myself. So as I'm sorting them, I notice a couple of things. First of all, it's not as easy as I thought it might be. I have to think a little bit about it. I sort of wonder, am I putting them in the right piles, or is this important, or what would other people think? So when I'm doing this with people, I say, just go with your gut. Try not to think about it too much. And also that you can go back and adjust things afterwards if you want to. So once the person is sorted into 3 piles, not very important, quite important, and very important, I ask them to focus on one of the piles, which is the very important. So I'm going to do that now. So if I was to take these cards here, and then I'd ask the person to focus on that very important pile. The further sorting I ask is to narrow down into 5 cards only. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so I've got 5 cards in total. I have to say that was hard because I felt like I was pushing cards out that I felt were really important, but I've narrowed down into the cards that right now are important for me. So once the person has done that, again, just remind them that this isn't the be-all and end-all. This is just for now, just what's popping up now in terms of what's important. I'd ask them a few questions to help them kind of debrief and reflect on this process. The first, I'd say just a broad general question: what do you notice in the process of sorting these cards? And I'd ask also, were there any surprises, anything that stood out that was interesting to you? I'd ask, is there any cards as you've done this you think are actually really missing that should be in here, that are missing at the moment? I'd also ask about the emotional quality of doing this exercise. How did it feel on the inside? How did it feel not including some values? And how did it feel as you look at the values here? Like, what kind of emotional resonance do you feel? For me personally, I kind of find there's a real mixture of excitement to it. There's some possibilities that open up here, and I can sort of connect with this and feel a sense of, yeah, this is me. These are the things that are important to me. The last thing that I do is trying to link the values with actual action. So I ask the person to reflect on their top 5 and then perhaps choose one that they'd like to bring into prominence over the next week. And I'm going to choose here connecting with others. And in this instance, I'm going to think about one action that can help me move in the direction of connecting with others. And immediately something springs to mind that I'd like to call my parents, maybe my dad. I haven't spoken to him for a little while. So the actual action that's going to move me in this direction is to give my dad a WhatsApp message and say, let's make a time to talk. These cards provide a really fun, engaging, interesting way to have conversations about values. The thing that I really like most about them is that they are really creative. They draw people in to think about a range of different values. And also, really crucially, they help people think about actual actions that can help them move towards their values. The second card set in this deck are the conversation cards, and these are really, really helpful ways to have conversations with young people, with grown-ups and adults who perhaps find it harder to talk about values, or maybe when you start to ask for values, they say things like, I don't know. These cards offer really interesting prompts for conversations, like, for example, what does freedom mean to you? Or what do you do for hope? To introduce the cards, I usually say something like, well, now I've spoken about the problem quite a bit, I'd like to open up the conversation a little wider and ask you more about you. I would let the person shuffle through the cards and choose some interesting questions to answer, but I'd also choose some myself that I think might be a little provocative or might push the person. As we're having the conversation, I'm listening out for a few things. One thing I'm listening for is the person's values that might shine through. So if they would ask a question like, imagine you could achieve anything, what would it be? You could see that values might come into that conversation, either by the things the person talks about or what they don't talk about, the things they might find difficult. I might also be thinking a little bit about helping them to build their noticing capacity, like asking questions like, what do you notice as you're doing this? How do you feel on the inside? What's your body saying to you at this moment? I'd also ask about their advisor at work, and I might say, as you're answering these questions, like, what do you notice your mind saying? Is there lots of chatter happening at the moment? What's your mind saying you should talk about or maybe shouldn't talk about? Lastly, I'd also think about their capacity to engage their discoverer and how these questions open up conversations and lead them into new, creative, different areas. If I'm working with young people, then these conversations will be really helpful for thinking about their social connections, where they are with their peers, with their family, how they think about themselves in those environments. And very lastly, there might be some scope for me to engage in a little bit of self-disclosure as well. I might choose to answer a couple of the questions myself, either in terms of what I think right now or perhaps even for myself when I was growing up. That might be really useful and create some interesting and engaging conversations with the young person. I found these 2 card sets really helpful and really engaging and provide lots of different avenues to talk with people about things that really matter to them. Sometimes talking about values can be hard, it can be painful, it can bring up lots of I don't knows. Having this as a tool, as a mechanism, helps really open up those conversations. I really encourage you to check them out and use them yourself.